Hey everyone, have you ever had a dream that someone close to you just didn't get? Maybe they said it was a waste of time, or that you should focus on something more practical. If you've ever been told to give up on your passion, then you need to hear this story. It's about a young artist, a dismissive mother, and a validation that came from the highest place possible. This is a powerful reminder that your gift is yours alone, and sometimes the greatest success is the one that proves your biggest doubter wrong. If you're rooting for the underdog and believe in following your heart, you're gonna love this. So get ready for some serious feels. And hey, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss one of our inspiring stories. Let us know in the comments about a passion you'll never give up on. Now, let's get into the story. The smell of turpentine and linseed oil was Sophie's oxygen. It was the scent of possibility, of worlds being built from nothing on a stretched canvas. Her studio was the family's dusty, cluttered garage, a space her mother, Brenda, refused to let her convert into a proper bedroom because it was useful for storage. To Sophie, it was a cathedral. Sunlight, filtered through grimy windows, fell in dusty shafts across her latest creation. A sprawling, emotional landscape, all swirling, moody grays and blues, with a single, defiant slash of gold cutting through the center. It was her heart, laid bare in oil paint. The slam of the kitchen door echoed like a gunshot. "Sophie, are you still messing around in there? It smells like a chemical plant." Brenda stood in the doorway, a dish towel slung over her shoulder, her face a familiar mask of exasperation. Her eyes, the same shade of hazel as Sophie's, scanned the garage with visible distaste, skipping over the canvases leaning against the walls, as if they were piles of trash. "It's just the odor of the oils, Mom. It'll fade," Sophie said, not turning from her canvas, her brush hovering over the slash of gold, trying to hold on to the feeling. "Oils, canvases, it's all such a waste, Sophie. A waste of space, a waste of money." Brenda sighed, stepping carefully around a pallet caked with dried paint. "When are you going to focus on something real? Your cousin Melissa just got a promotion at the bank. She has a 401k. She has benefits. What do you have? A bunch of colorful dust collectors." Colorful dust collectors. The words were a needle to Sophie's heart, a refrain she'd heard her entire life. Her earliest memory was of her mother laughing, not unkindly, at a finger painting she'd brought home from kindergarten. "That's cute, honey, but let's work on your letters, okay? That's what's important." In high school, when she'd poured her soul into a portfolio for a scholarship, Brenda had said, "It's a lovely hobby, but you need a backup plan. Art doesn't pay the bills." The backup plan had become a day job as a barista, a job Brenda saw as a step in the right direction, and Sophie saw as a way to fund her real work. "It's not a waste, Mom. It's what I love. It's who I am." "Love doesn't put food on the table, sweetheart," Brenda said, her voice taking on that infuriatingly reasonable tone. "You need to be practical. You're 24. It's time to grow up and let this fantasy go." Her eyes fell on the large landscape Sophie was working on. She frowned. "What's that supposed to be? It's so dark and messy. All those gloomy colors. No one wants to hang something like that in their living room." Sophie felt the sting of tears, but refused to let them fall. She wouldn't give her mother the satisfaction. "It's not for a living room. It's about finding light in the darkness." Brenda gave a short, dismissive laugh. "Well, I think you've found a little too much darkness. It's depressing." She turned to leave. "I'm taking this old furniture to the curb for bulk pickup. Make sure none of your things are on it." She left, and the garage felt emptier, the light dimmer. Sophie looked at her painting. Was it depressing? Was it a waste? The seed of doubt, planted so long ago and so carefully nurtured, took root again. For a fleeting moment, she considered scraping the canvas clean, throwing away her brushes, and applying to the bank with Melissa. But she didn't. Instead, she picked up her brush, dipped it in the pure, brilliant gold, and made the slash in the center, just a little brighter, a little bolder. It was an act of defiance. Later that week, the bulk trash pickup arrived. Sophie was at her barista shift, serving lattes and smiling through her own quiet despair. When she came home, exhausted, she walked into the garage and froze. It was gone. The space where her large, emotional landscape had been leaning was empty. A faint dust outline was all that remained. Panic, cold and sharp, seized her. "Mom!" she yelled, running into the house. "Where's my painting? The big one?" Brenda was watching TV, looking unconcerned. "Oh, that big gloomy thing? I told you, honey. It was trash day. It was just taking up space. It's gone. Gone." Sophie felt the world drop out from under her. That wasn't just a painting. It was a piece of her soul. She'd called it resilience. Without a word, she turned and ran out the front door, down the driveway, and looked at the empty curb. The trash truck had come and gone. Her painting was buried in a landfill, crushed under bags of actual garbage. She stood there for a long time, the streetlights flickering on around her, feeling a loss so profound it was a physical ache. It was the final straw. Her mother hadn't just dismissed her art, she had thrown it away. Literally. That night, Sophie packed a single bag. She left a note on the kitchen counter. "I can't live where my soul is considered trash. I'll be staying with Eli." Eli was her best friend, a fellow artist who understood. He gave her his couch, his endless encouragement, and space in his tiny studio. The betrayal was a fresh wound, but in a strange way, it was also a liberation. There was no one left to disappoint. She painted with a new, raw, and furious energy. The paintings that emerged from that period were darker, more powerful, more honest. They were no longer seeking approval. They were simply screaming into existence. She entered one, a piece called Discarded, into a small, local juried art show. It was a long shot, but it was something. She dropped off the canvas and tried to forget about it, pouring all her emotion into her next work, her heart still aching from the one her mother had thrown in the trash. Weeks bled into months. Life on Eli's couch was cramped, but her spirit felt freer than it ever had in her mother's pristine, art-free house. She worked her barista shifts, saved every spare penny for supplies, and painted late into the night. The memory of her mother's dismissal was a constant hum in the background, but it had been transformed from a source of pain into a source of fuel. She didn't need Brenda's approval. Her validation came from the act of creation itself, from the smudge of paint on her hands and the quiet satisfaction of a finished piece. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, her phone buzzed on the coffee-stained counter of the cafe. It was an unknown number. She almost let it go to voicemail, assuming it was a telemarketer. "Is this Sophie Miller?" a polished professional voice asked. "Yes, speaking," Sophie said, wiping her hands on her apron. "This is Alicia Chen, curator of the National Museum of Modern Art. We need to speak with you immediately about your piece, Discarded." Sophie's heart stopped. The National Museum of Modern Art? It had to be a prank. Eli was probably messing with her. I'm sorry, what? "Your painting was entered into the New Visions showcase through our partnership with the local gallery. Our head curator saw it during the preliminary judging. Sophie, he was utterly captivated. We've been trying to track you down. The contact information on your entry form was for your mother's house, and she was less than helpful." Sophie's blood ran cold. Her mother. "Of course. We believe Discarded is a masterpiece of modern emotional realism," Alicia continued, her voice brimming with excitement. "We want to acquire it for our permanent collection and feature it as the centerpiece of our upcoming exhibit, The Unseen Voice. We're prepared to offer you our highest acquisition honorarium." Sophie slid down the wall behind the counter, the phone pressed to her ear, the world spinning. The National Museum. A permanent collection. An acquisition. The words were so big, so impossible, they hardly made sense. "Are you serious?" was all she could manage. "Completely serious," Alicia laughed. "We'll email you all the details. And Sophie, congratulations. Your work is breathtaking." When she hung up, she screamed. A short, sharp burst of pure, unfiltered joy that made her coworkers jump. She called Eli, sobbing and laughing at the same time. It was real. It was happening. The news spread like wildfire. The local paper did a story on the local barista-turned-art sensation. Friends she hadn't heard from in years sent messages. Through it all, there was a deafening silence from her mother. The night of the museum's gala unveiling arrived. Sophie stood in a simple black dress in the center of the museum's grand hall, surrounded by the city's elite, art critics and press. Her painting, Discarded, was mounted on a central wall, bathed in a perfect, dramatic spotlight. A small, elegant plaque next to it bore its name, her name, and a single word in bold, Priceless. She gave a short, heartfelt speech about perseverance, about finding your voice, about the importance of creating even when no one is listening. She didn't mention her mother. She didn't have to. As she finished, her eyes scanned the crowd. And there, standing near the back, half hidden in the shadows, was Brenda. Her mother was wearing her best church dress, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. She wasn't looking at Sophie. She was staring at the painting, the one she had called gloomy and messy, and had thrown to the curb like yesterday's news. Tears were streaming down her face, leaving clean tracks through her carefully applied makeup. It wasn't the crying of someone who was happy for her daughter. It was the raw, ugly crying of someone confronting a devastating, irreversible mistake. Their eyes met across the crowded room. Brenda's face crumpled further. She mouthed the words, "I'm sorry." Sophie felt a complex whirlwind of emotions. Vindication, sadness, pity. She gave her mother a small, slow, deliberate nod. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was an acknowledgement. She turned away from her mother and back to her painting, now enshrined as a national treasure. The gold slash in the center seemed to glow with an inner light, no longer just a symbol of resilience, but a beacon of triumph. Her dream hadn't needed her mother's approval. It had only ever needed her own passion. And now, the whole world could see its priceless value.